Hello and welcome to the Deep NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Bell from Miss Buffalo Man. How are we?
I'm bloody good.
That's good.
It's prelim day, Sean.
It's prelim day for those who celebrate. Happy hashtag baggers.
No.
Oh, the other one. Yeah,
the other one. Don't be saying baggers on my own podcast. Listeners may know the result of prelim number 2.
Well,
by the time they listen to this, so if the Brisbane Lions have lost, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear about it.
We are recording this on the Sunday before the Thursday that we release this podcast, which is of course pertinent for our footy chat at the top, but also I should just mention that some things might happen between now and Thursday. So if Luka Doncic gets traded to the Lakers, that's probably going to throw off our projections. But we're doing this as of Saturday the 23rd. So yes, if there's anything that happens after this, we're not going to talk about it. Over-unders, you know the spiel, you know how it works. If you haven't listened to the first episode, do so. But Dante and I run through the over-unders for every single team this upcoming season. This episode we're doing the Western Conference, also known as the Lefton Conference. And I think that's all the housekeeping. We do this for the 4th year, and this is the second half, so this is the 8th time we've done this.
So it's like clockwork by now.
It is.
I could do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
Dallas Mavericks and
well, what is it?
No, well that was just me doing it in my sleep. But for the Dallas Mavericks, the number is set at 45.5, and last season, so fucking disappointing for the Dallas Mavericks. They went into the tank at the end. They won 38 games last season, so this is substantially higher than their last season win total. And do you want to give us the particulars?
They added Seth Curry, Dante Exum, Grant Williams, and Rashawn Holmes. They re-signed Kyrie Irving, which was a topic of major discussion before it happened. And they lost Christian Wood maybe a week ago. They also, because they had such a disappointing season, they were able to get a high draft pick. And I can't remember the dude. It was that Duke big man.
Olivier Maxence Prosper.
No, it's like he's like a Derek
Lively. Yeah.
Derek Lively 4. No relation to Lonnie Walker. He's supposed to be like a good, let's say Montrezl Harrell, but he should be better on defense. That's his projection. He's properly sized. He's not undersized like Montrezl, but he's just like a finishing big. And I know I was listening to some podcasts that's like, oh, he's going to come in, he's got Luka next to him, he's going to smash a bunch of lobs. But it's like, I think he's a teenager. Like, give him a couple of years to figure out how to play defense. But 45.5 for the Dallas Mavericks. You've gone under, I've gone over. Who's going to be convincing who first?
I'm going to be convincing you because I don't understand how you can possibly go over on this.
On Luka Doncic's team.
On Luka Doncic's team, that's literally just Luka Doncic with
Kyrie Irving.
That's kind of my point. Yeah. Well, I feel like the roster around Luka, just to put Kyrie to the side for one moment, fits and is less proven. Fits worse and is less proven than ever before.
Wait, without Kyrie.
Just putting Kyrie to the side.
Right.
The role players on this roster are worse and poorer fitting than any of the previous iterations of the Mavs. They've somehow traded away all of their good wings and left themselves with question marks also at the 4 and the 5. Their big man options is Holmes,
Dwight Powell,
Maxey. Who is like not.
Yeah, he's great in feet.
Not anything really these days.
When Dwight Powell got re-signed for the minimum, it was like, the Mavs love him in the organisation. It was like, let's not bring up his points per game and the fact that he's got one meniscus. Yeah,
exactly. And then the 2 young bigs, Prosper and Derek Lively, who are both projects. I had heard of Derek Lively that he's more of a Willie Cauley-Stein kind of guy. So
dog shit.
Yeah, well, just your like rim protecting finishing big.
I think that mold's actually called the Tyson Chandler, not the Willie Cauley-Stein.
Well, Willie Cauley-Stein, former Maverick. Tyson Chandler, also a former Maverick, notably. None of those players have proven to be even like average level starters, let alone
Maxi Kleber.
Maxi Kleber is not an average level starter.
Yeah,
I don't
he
think.
is.
I don't think so.
When I think the word average, I think Maxi Kleber.
Okay, well, fair enough. You got 1 out of 5 blokes who's an average level starter, and then the Luka Kyrie thing didn't work down the end of last season. That's not to say that with an off season and whatever you can do in the early running that they can't make it work. But the early returns were bad. They
were passing the ball back and forth.
It was your turn, my turn.
They brought him in for a playoff push and they didn't make the playoffs.
Well, they tanked. They actively sat people at the end of the season because it went so poorly. And I've been banging this drum for the entire time I've been doing the podcast, but I'm not ever underestimating the impact on chemistry and on availability that having Kyrie on your team has. I just don't see how this team is 7 wins better than last season.
Yeah, I mean, it's 7 wins, let's call it maybe 5 wins better, because let's say they tried those last couple of games, maybe they're a little bit better. But
even that...
My theory is Luka Doncic with shooters and big men, like full stop.
Who are the shooters?
Tim Hardaway Jr.
and Seth Curry. And that's it.
Who's that? They've got that.
Is Seth Curry going to be playing?
Jaden Hardy is good at basketball.
We'll see. He's extremely unproven. Is Seth Curry going to be on the court when there's Luka and Kyrie at the guard slots? And then, who's playing the 3? Tim Hardaway Jr. is playing the 3. So
Grant Williams slides up if it's a good matchup.
Grant Williams at the 4, and then any of the blokes that we've talked about as your options at the 5. That is tiny. That team can't defend anyone.
I'm not very confident in this pick, but I just think a full season of Luka Doncic, is Kyrie having an upgrade on Spencer Dinwiddie? Because I was high on this team last year. Is Kyrie better than Spencer Dinwiddie?
Yeah, he is. But this team also had your Bullocks and your Finney Smiths. Yeah, along with Hardaway, who were okay.
But you would hope Grant Williams is better than Bullock and Finney Smith. They're paying him
not for the I would probably rather have Finney Smith for what the Mavs need than for Grant Williams.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it's potato. But I feel that's what I mean about fit. Last year, it was okay, you've kind of got your wings locked in. You've got some playmaking off the bench. You've got some bigs who it's okay, maybe this isn't exactly what you need, but you got good level big men. Yeah. Now I just feel the fit, those key 3-and-D wing stocks are completely depleted, and so are the big stocks. They've got a lot of options at big man, but none of them inspire me with even.
Also, waiving JaVale McGee a year after signing him for 3 for 33, when his next biggest offer was the minimum from Golden State or something.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not very confident on this, but I just think Luka's so fucking good, and he's also just spent an off season in FIBA, and he comes into the season usually overweight, and then he plays himself into form. But he's just been excellent at the World Cup, doing exactly what he does for the Dallas Mavericks, which is dragging them to wins while also complaining. I just think Luke is very good, and they're going to try.
Yeah.
And Kyrie is an upgrade on Spencer Dinwiddie, and I like the theory of this team with horrible fucking defenders, but Grant Williams can shoot, Tim Hardaway Jr. can shoot, Seth Curry can shoot. We'll see which big, when you sift the fucking big men, which one's going to rise to the top. It might be which one falls less, but I just, I think Luka Doncic on this team's good. And how hard is it to find just an average level 5? If you don't think Maxi's an average 5, how hard would it be for them to just try and find an average 5 on the trade market or on the buyout market?
Well, I mean, we don't need to get into the weeds on it.
So Mason Plumlee level.
But I mean, again, Mason Plumlee is not an average level 5. Mason Plumlee is a backup 5.
Yeah, okay.
This, without giving up your 2 recent first round picks, who are at the both 4 or 5 type players. They are cash strapped. They're asset poor. without giving up those guys who you just drafted to fill the role. If you find that they can't fill the role and then you're trading them for someone who can fill the role, it's like, this is...
Yeah. Look,
things haven't gone well if they're in that situation.
I'm not very confident. You've gone under, I've gone over. Denver Nuggets, their numbers set at 54.5. How many wins did they have last year?
They had 53 last season. So
really?
Yeah, one seed with 53. Because they had a little swoon at the end of the season, if you remember.
Yeah, when Jokic was just like 25 minutes against the Rockets, and it's like, if we lose, we lose. They added a lot of cheap draft guys. They drafted fucking multiple fucking weirdos that are just like, oh, you better, at least one of you five better be good, and we're going to be a fine, team money wise. And they added Justin Holiday, which I think a few Denver fans on Twitter are a little bit too high on. Like, he has been bad the past couple of years. They re-signed Reggie Jackson on a 2 for 10.5, which is fucked up. And I believe they had something like written down when he signed with them as a buyout guy. I don't know if you remember watching Reggie Jackson in the playoffs, but he came in for like final possession of halves just to soak up a half-court 3-point shot. Yeah, bad.
What you've just described sounds like tampering. Sounds like the big T.
And they lost Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and Thomas Bryant. 54.5. So we're assuming this team's going to get better. We're assuming another year of health from Jamal Murray. He obviously took FIBA World Cup off so he can just recover his body a little bit. Another year of health, which you never know from Michael Porter Jr., but also a year of just progression, because what is he, 23, 24 years old?
Maybe 25.
And, you can obviously just plug Jokic in anywhere, and this team's going to have an exceptional offense. But you've gone over. I think I'll follow you going over, but this team's going to have a good seed. They know that they can win in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be sweating over, like, the seeding battle. I think there's other teams that are going to really care about getting home court advantage around them. I don't think the Denver Nuggets are going to do that, and that could make this tricky, just like down the end of the season. But I will say over with you.
I think this team is the most comfortable elite team with not winning a lot of games in the regular season since the LeBron Cavs, where they were like, for the 3 seed it doesn't matter. We're gonna make the ECF no matter what. So you just have to imagine though that, like, Bruce Brown loss notwithstanding, which they're hoping that a collection of the guys that they drafted and maybe some internal development from Christian, and I can't believe I'm going to say this way, Christian Brown, can cover most of what Bruce Brown was giving them.
Yeah.
This is like two games over. They're going to be better. Another year of health from both Murray and MPJ. MPJ, like, whatever. Who knows what you're going to get. But Murray could seriously just be an all-star. Murray could just be 26 and 8 this season.
Especially after playing so well in the playoffs. Like, people voting are going to be like, oh, okay, well, like, he's just proven it. I don't care if he's averaging 19 points, not 21.
Well, I don't even mean, like, necessarily, like, him making the game or the discourse around it. I mean, like, Murray could just come in and play at a top 25 level and become, like, a full-blown sidekick for Jokic, which, if that happens, this team is going to be almost unstoppable, because we've seen that in the playoffs.
I think it is a little bit clear, and like, I'm high on Colin Gillespie.
Okay, you're gonna have to be a bit more specific. Who is that?
You remember the video where Jeff Green was mic'd up, and then he was this like young dude was in the way of him, and he goes, "Yes, Dad," and he got out of his way, and then had to sit down.
No.
Anyway, it's just, he came in, he was like a 3-year college point guard, and he's like when he got drafted, it's like, you're Monty Morris, and it's like, oh, you got drafted by the Nuggets, you're going to be fucking Monty Morris. He's just like, never turns the ball over. Like, throughout all college, it was like he might have had one turnover. Is he going to be
the backup or the third string?
He's going to start as a third string because he missed last year with, I think it was like a major hand injury. So he's he's fully conditioned, and he was on a 2A last year, and he got re-signed for the 2A this year.
Yeah.
Some of the names that they picked up: Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson. I think that's the only
no
two.
one of high.
Julian Strawther, yeah.
No one of high pedigree.
If any of these guys hit, they've just got 4 years of cost-controlled role player.
Yeah.
Zeke Naji, this is going to be his last chance to fucking play good basketball. And, I listen to a lot of Denver podcasts, and everyone's like, this is the year of Peyton Watson, because it's like, if you look down the end of last season, he came in and he averaged 8 points for the last 3 games, and it's like, yeah, well, they were the games when DeAndre Jordan was your starting center and stuff, and someone had to take the bad shots. We'll see. Like, he's an undersized 3.
But there is this, like, Brown and Jeff Green being out of the rotation now, moving on to other teams. Like, there's a few rotation spots at the, like the 3-4 and then the 2-3 that are kind of up for grabs, and there's like 5 or 6 people who could, in theory, step into those spots. So if someone wants to grab it, like, it's ripe for the picking.
Like, if one of these dudes wants 25 minutes a game, go fucking get it. It's
exactly. Yeah. It's like the perfect, like, go and earn it moment for these guys. But I think I'm pretty comfortable with the over.
All right. What is the next team?
So the Golden State Warriors are set at 48.5 after winning 44 last season.
They added one Chris Paul, Dario Saric, and they recently signed Usman Garuba to our two-way slot. We re-signed Draymond.
Paul Usman Garuba, by the way.
Yeah.
Rough off-season.
Well, rough off-season for all those Rockets. But, and if the Kevin Porter Jr. stuff had happened a couple of months earlier, maybe Ty Washington's still on the roster.
Why do bad things happen to bad organizations?
Re-signed Draymond Green, which was like not actually a guaranteed thing to happen after he punched Jordan Poole right in the.
And especially after Sacramento opened up all of that cap space and was rumored to be going to throw $40 million a year at him.
That's right.
Not concerned.
We lost Dante DiVincenzo, Andre Iguodala retired. We lost Ty Jerome, which I actually didn't mind watching him play basketball. We lost Jordan Poole, and Anthony Lamb is still unsigned, but I think if he hasn't been signed yet, he's probably not going to be signed. There might be a spot in the Brisbane Bullets, because they need a wing. So 48.5, I've gone over. This team struggle with injuries, and I think they're just going to continue to struggle with injuries, where Steph Curry's going to miss his 30 games a year, and in those games it's like, oh, we're very, very bad at basketball, but when Steph Curry's out there, we're a 50-win team. Bringing in Chris Paul, it's like, okay, now when Steph Curry's out, Jordan Poole's not like taking every shot and getting one assist. You've got Chris Paul, who, when he's healthy, now I'm a little bit less confident now that I'm wording it out. When Chris Paul's healthy, like, he's still a good point guard, and like, he might average 10 points, but he's going to average 9 assists with it. I wonder how we're going to get by with Chris Paul and Draymond Green on the court at the same time, because neither of them want to take threes, and both of them want to distribute from the same parts of the court. It's just, I think this team's good, and just another year of health, another year of progression from the young guys. Hopefully Moses Moody can just be a backup like guard. Like, can he be as good as Dante DiVincenzo was last year? You would fucking hope so. Jonathan Kuminga, like, he says he's going to request a trade if he's not starting or like finishing. We'll see.
Extreme bait-up move.
But also, the Chris Paul salary slot might be more valuable than Chris Paul. We can move Chris Paul, who the next team will just not guarantee his contract for next year. We can get into a Pascal Siakam trade. We can get into a Karl Anthony Towns trade. We can get into a next person available trade.
You could get into it, but what are you giving up other than an expiring contract?
Expiring Moody and/or Kuminga, and now because another year has passed, we have a pick that we can trade. So I think we can trade our 29 and 30 pick. So that's Jonathan Kuminga, Chris Paul, and 2 picks in 29 and 30. Yeah,
which the picks are quite valuable, but Kuminga is but a drop in the ocean, even in the Pascal Siakam silent auction.
Reader, huh? Nice to meet one. I
don't know.
No, I think does that trade package beat Atlanta's offer of DeAndre Hunter, Bogey, and their 30 pick?
No, because I mean, maybe that offer itself beats it, but
does AJ Griffin swing you that much? But
you can then go back to Atlanta and say, we need more. Whereas you can't really do that with Golden State. That's what Golden State has to give. It's like, take it or leave it. Mm-hmm. You go back to Atlanta and you're like, oh, another pick or maybe like another wing. Atlanta's like, okay, sure, whatever.
So why have you gone under on this number?
I don't really know. But I'm going to take a negative stance on the Chris Paul edition until, like, I'm super open to my mind being changed. But when I commune with my internal self, about how I really think this is going to go. I don't see it going super well, at least not initially. And because we're not picking these as who's going to win the championship or who's going to succeed in the playoffs, it's purely a regular season thing. If it takes you 30 games to figure out how to get your best player to play with another max slot player on your team, like that's a pretty big hill to climb.
We just saw the Wolves struggle with that.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, they're awesome. They'll figure it out. And it's like sometimes they don't.
And we didn't last year.
Sometimes they do. Like to bring it back to Atlanta. Like how are DeJounte Murray and Trae Young going to fit together? Like both of them thrive with the ball. And you talk about the theory, and it's like Murray more on the ball, he can attack the cup, and Trae can play more off the ball and leverage his shooting. And then they play together, and it's like, oh, actually, you're both just a little bit worse.
Yeah.
You don't often get these like interlocking puzzle pieces where everyone brings the best out of each other. And if there was going to be a place where it could happen, it would be with Steve Kerr and playing with Chris Paul and Draymond and Steph, like three of the smartest players of the last 15 years. But I have to wait and see for that. And I just when I think about this team, like I think this is a 5 or a 6 seed.
Yeah.
And I think under is a 5 or a 6 seed number, and over is you're pushing for home court in the playoffs number. And I just don't see them stack up against some of the other heavy hitters in the West.
It's a well set number, and I know Lucas is probably going to laugh because they set the numbers to be well. But we've seen the Chris Paul archetype a bit fit with Sean Livingston, where it's just like, okay, give this guy the ball, he's going to post up at the elbow, and he can turn around and shoot it at any point, but he also succeeds because we've got dudes who can set screens for him and also he had great chemistry with Dario Saric when they played together, but Dario Saric and Kevon Looney, and then he's going to do his little snake dribble, and if our shooters can hit shots, then it's awesome. And we know that the Splash Brothers can, but like, can Moody do that when Chris Paul's just trying to like make this second unit work? Because that was a big problem for us. The bench just could not touch the court, and it's like, okay, we'll stagger. And it's like, well, Clay's not fucking doing anything with the bench.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think CP3 and Steph will be staggered to some extent, but at least the noises that Chris Paul has been making over the summer is that he doesn't expect to just be coming in here and playing 20 minutes a game leading the bench. Like he expects to be on the court with Steph. He expects to be on the court starting. And I think maybe that's where the Livingston analogy kind of falls down a bit, because Livingston, you could just say, oh, you're going to play 8 minutes, and he'd be like, awesome.
Because he's getting paid $8 million.
I'm going to bank in 3 jump shots, and that's going to be my contribution.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily do that with Chris Paul, and his body is. It's funny to have him as a counterpoint to Livingston and say that his body is not at the same place as Livingston's was after everything that Livingston went through. But Livingston on the Warriors was actually just durable as fuck. He was just like 75 games every season, no worries.
He was also like, when Steph Curry sat, he's like, I'll still come off the bench, put some like best shit out there.
Yeah, is Chris Paul like on the decline? Is he able to still like hit a spot up jump shot without going into that like janky catapult motion that he's had since his shoulder injury in the playoffs a few years ago?
He's never wanted to. Yeah,
I just think there's enough questions. There's questions around Clay as well. Like you say, maybe a year further away from the injury, a year more confidence and better recovery for Clay. Maybe he's back to being a bit more efficient, but like, there's just enough question marks here for me to not be confident at all in saying over. So I'm sticking under.
You're right. And also another hole in the Livingston role is that Livingston could like play with the bench, then Steph comes in, and all of a sudden Livingston's got Steph running around as well. But Livingston could guard threes, Chris Paul can't, and we don't even know if he can guard ones. And
he can't guard ones anymore. That's 100%.
Well, we hide Steph on Kevin Herter, not De'Aaron Fox for a reason.
And you have to hide Clay as well, and
and we can't do that anymore.
All of a sudden, 1 through 3.
Just I don't know, Matt. The Chris Paul salary slot pushes me over this more than Chris Paul the player.
Yeah, well, and we'll obviously be covering this, the ongoing development of this throughout the season. So I'm sure this will be the first of many back and forths about the state of the Golden State Warriors, but. Let's move on to the Houston Rockets, who are set at 31.5. And shouting out to Lucas again, this feels like a very well set number, because last year they won 22 games, but this season they have no incentive to be bad. and they've added a lot of players. And could you please run us through who they've signed on?
Added Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, Ham Hock Landale, Fred Van Vliet, Armin Thompson, and Cam Whitmore. I don't think they re-signed anyone of note, and they lost every late draft young player that they owned to open up a spot for all those role players. 31 and a half. You think it's well set. I think this is like a hard over for like at least 35 wins. Maybe if everything goes well, 40. Just adding
40.
adding
Starts with a
depth.
4. Bloody hell.
Adding the depth.
You've been drinking from the fountain, brother.
It's like, okay, well, what's the starting lineup of Dylan Brooks, Fred Van Vliet, Jalen Green, and Jabari Smith, who had a good summer league, and Şengün, right? Like, that's pretty fucking good. And we've seen other teams assemble good starting lineups where it's like, oh my god, look at the Orlando Magic last year. Like, that's actually a pretty good fucking starting lineup. Franz, Banchero,
One of the
guards, right? Wendell Carter Jr. is like, oh, that's pretty fucking good. But then it's like, oh, who's backing him up? It's like, well, who the fuck's that? Like 4/3 for the Magic for the last 6 years. And it's like, who the fuck's that? But they got Jock Landale, who's a good backup.
He's a backup.
They got Jeff Green, who's a championship level backup. Like he's the 8th best player on a championship team. They've got Armin Thompson, who everyone seems to be high on, and if he does anything more than 0, he's already a good rookie. They've just got like good depth pieces here, and also like losing. I'm assuming they're going to lose Kevin Porter Jr. Losing Kevin Porter Jr. is great because A, he's an arsehole and shouldn't be in the league, but B, he's not good at fucking basketball. So now instead of having like just shot happy dudes that are going to come in like shoot, it's like, oh, well now he's out of the equation. I kind of like this team, and like if Jabari Smith's junior summer league, if you want to buy into that, I'll happily have a chat with you. I might not, but it's not negative, right? It's not negative that he's done great there. And Şengün, I think this year we're going to find out what Şengün's role is on a good team, because he's been putting up some empty calories for a very bad team. But is Şengün just like Montrezl Harrell, where it's just like he's going to fucking score like a prime Montrezl Harrell? Or is
Prime Montrezl Harrell. What a funny sentence.
Or is Şengün going to be like Yusuf Nurkic but bad on defense?
Yeah. Well, also like Şengün could, I don't know, he is bad on D now, but there's not to say that he's always going to be bad on D.
Jokic got better.
Yeah, Jokic got better. Like there are, Nurkic got better. Like there are dudes who, just their mental game catches up to the rest of it, and they can sort of compensate for lack of physical tools. I'm just like when I think about last season, like I can only really pick out maybe 2 teams that I think they might be better than, who finished above them. Maybe Utah, maybe Portland. But the rest of them, like all those teams who were in the playoff hunt last season, I have a hard time thinking this team is going to be better than any of them. And to hit 40, they're going to need to be better than a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I think everything that you said sounds really good, because you're right about the starting lineup. They've also added Ime Udoka, who for all of his, similarly related to KPJ, all of his
exploits,
personal and professional flaws over the last few seasons. He's a pretty damn good coach. He's taken his team goddamn near all the way. And the one thing that he can do is coach D. So you're going to imagine that this team is going to have a much improved defense. And they've got Fred Van Vliet to be the organizer. Hopefully you can channel Jalen Green into a productive, efficient scorer, rather than him and KPJ last season just being like, putting up 40 points on 40 shots between them. It all sounds really good, but then I wonder if there is a bit of magic from last season potential where, like Jock Landale and Jeff Green are like average and very, very old, respectively. Yeah. And then the rookies like Thompson and Cam Whitmore, awesome. You've got, 1 through 4 flexibility there on both offense and D with those guys. They could be anything. They could be really good, but they're both rookies. Yeah. And even though you're kind of saying maybe they're only going to play 18 minutes a game, they don't need to be, in they don't need to be like playing big minutes, or they can be kind of like managed a little bit. Like if you're bad, you're bad, and if they're not great as rookies, then this is a thin team. That's one injury or one like Jalen Green not progressing or Fred VanVleet struggling outside of the ecosystem that he was raised in.
Yeah.
Away from having 4 good NBA players and then the rest of them being like rookies and role players.
Yeah.
And that's not enough to get to 40. So I think this team's gonna win maybe mid-30s. And I think as well, like, you know, we've outlined the case for it, but there's no real prospect of a pivot here, even late in the season, because their picks are owed to Brooklyn. So,
wait, is that right?
No, it can't be, because they have Brooklyn's picks. Their picks are owed to Oklahoma City, maybe, from the Westbrook trade. Is that where they're going? Their pick this year is out.
Washington. No, it's somewhere.
Yeah.
They own Brooklyn's this year.
They own Brooklyn's this year from the Harden deal.
Yeah,
I think their pick goes to OKC this year for.
So yeah, they've got incentive.
There's no chance that they're going to be, you know, 20 and 40 and say, okay, we're gonna turn it in. Like, they're going to be trying the whole way through, not wanting to convey that high pick. So for this exercise, they're going to be trying from game 70 onwards, and they're going to be playing against teams that maybe aren't trying, tanking teams or teams that are resting players ahead of the, you know. So I think they're definitely going to hit this.
But when they're 20 and 40 and they say, fuck, we have to go, it might be Jeff Green 30 minutes. It might not be Jalen Green, this exceptional all-star.
If Jeff Green has to play 30 minutes at any point in the season, like, things are going poorly.
Yeah. Look, we've both gone over because 32 wins is not many. Look, I'm less confident about the 40 because we've seen teams do this before where they just fill out their roster with you know, they'll overpay for a role player, and if it doesn't work, it's like, we'll just trade him to a contender for a protected pick halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And that might just be what happens with Jock Landale, who's fully non-guaranteed for his 3-year fucking 30. Good money if he can get it though. We've both gone over, but LA Clippers, give me their particulars.
So 46.5 for this season after 44 last season. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's really tough. You've ridden under. They added KJ Martin. They re-signed Mason Plumlee and Russell Westbrook, because Russell Westbrook had nowhere else to go, so they had to give him 2 for $8. And they lost Eric Gordon. Fucking Eric Gordon's just like the best minimum player right now, but the best minimum.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's my cautious optimism, but Eric Gordon's also old.
Yeah, but you didn't watch him for the Bahamas, did you?
No, I didn't.
In the Olympic qualifiers, like, the Bahamas are now in the Olympics. Well, they're in the tournament before the Olympics with Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton.
I can't lie. I mean, I said this last week. The only FIBA basketball I watched was with you and the rest of the Deep 2 Extended Universe.
Well, Eric Gordon hit 2 buzzer beater game winners to get into these Olympic qualifiers.
It's confusing because every time I would like, you know, turn it on or pop in, pop out, and engage it. It's like, oh, we're in the qualifying tournament, but it's not the qualifying tournament, it's the consolation tournament. But we're trying to get into the we're playing to try and get into the World Cup. But before we were trying to play for Olympic qualification, and then if you get into the World Cup, you go into the World Cup, and then there's 2 stages before the World Cup starts.
Yeah.
But if you didn't get into the World Cup, you go into the consolation tournament and you just play anyway.
So this is before the World Cup.
What are we doing?
Before the World Cup with those consolation tournaments, they had Olympic qualifiers because it's the only time to get everyone in the one building. Like with soccer, it's like, hey, we got an England game, and then all the leagues are like, we'll fucking stop for 2 weeks. Harry Kane, go kick a goal against fucking Northern Ireland or something, right? And it's like, cool, we know how good you are. But with basketball, because everyone's seasons are all at different times, World Cups and Olympics are the only time they can ever figure shit out, where everyone's all in the one building. And even then, like Steph Curry, LeBron, and Kevin Durant aren't playing. But this is the only time they can, so they have to do the exhibition games for the qualified World Cup teams are just exhibition games. While they're going on, there's Olympic qualifiers. But then if you're a top seed in the World Cup, you also qualify for the Olympics.
Look, I understand it. It's just unreal.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So Eric Gordon he hit 2 buzzer beaters for the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Against 2?
Yeah, that's actually
Thailand.
Argentina.
Yeah, okay.
They call it Thailand South. I think KJ Martin might be one of the best cheap moves of the off-season. I think it cost them like a couple of second round
They
picks.
picked him up from the Rockets?
Yeah, because the Rockets were just like, we're adding all these capable role players to win 35 games. Someone take our young people. KJ Martin next to either Kawhi or Paul George, like that's a good backup wing. Shut up, man.
No, I'm not laughing because of what you just said. I'm laughing because you said next to Kawhi or Paul George. Awesome. What does that even mean to me?
They play on the same team.
What does that sentence mean to me? And that's the reason why I have gone under on 46.5, because the sentence Kawhi and Paul George, it just means nothing to me at this point.
All right. Now you've written under 46.5. I've just typed over and then followed it up with bracket tanking rules bracket, because the new, not tanking rules, resting rules. The new rest rules, it's like they made it so that All-Stars, and the way they worded it was, a lot of people think just so it captures Kawhi Leonard. So they said All-Stars from the past 3 rosters, and then this roster, this year's as well, can't rest to back with you can read the rules or whatever it is, but it just means that they're not going to be able to rest with no injuries. And a few people think that they made it 3 years past just because that was the last time Kawhi was an All-Star. So it was just like, let's get Kawhi so he has to fucking play games.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've been so high on this team for the past couple of years. I picked them to win a title in 21. I picked them to be fucking really good. I've picked Kawhi for MVP one of those years when he was on the Clippers.
They're all 4 years older than when you've been picking them. And they're all 4 years more injured. And if there was going to be one player and one franchise who have been avant-garde, cutting edge at resting over the past 4 seasons, it's these guys. And that's not even to throw in the times when they are just genuinely injured. Which Paul George, every season, he misses 25 games through like genuine, actual injuries. Yeah. Kawhi has a combination of maladies, alongside his rest days. I just don't think we're going to get enough of these guys together for them to be super, super scary.
Yeah.
I think the roster has been progressively thinning out over the last few seasons. Definitely. Like, it's not the Clippers of 3 years ago where it's like, whoa, these 2 guys and then like awesome role players. It's like actually, it's kind of...
It's Bones Highland. Yeah. It's like, oh, who the fuck's Brandon Boston and why does he play in LA?
Yeah, Brandon Boston actually had one really good game like 3 seasons ago, and I was like, oh my god, Brandon Boston, one to watch. But unfortunately, he hasn't been one to watch.
I'm gonna stick with my over. 46 is so many wins. I'm gonna stick
47, brother.
I'm gonna stick with my over because it's sunk cost. But I'm not actually doing the sunk cost fallacy. I've fucking been with them for the whole time I've been doing this podcast. I would hate to pick under, and then they go ahead and do it. They go ahead and win 50 games, and then they knock out a good team in the playoffs.
You know what? I've got a pick in here that I'm just picking just because there's no analysis. It's just because I've been on the ride alongside, so I can respect that. Let's handshake. Respect that.
Next team, the LA Lakers, 48.5. What did they get last year?
43 last year, but
they made the Western Conference Finals.
As everyone will remind you, as every single basketball podcast you've ever listened to will remind you, they really did remake their roster after the trade deadline. So how can we really assess them on the first 50 games of the season?
Well, they're going to do that again because they just built a fucking horrible roster, and Rob Pelinka needs to save the day from himself. They added Jackson Hayes, bracket lol. They added Torian Prince. Also, Torian, first name basis. If I said they added Torian, you'd be like, who? No, you wouldn't.
No, yeah,
because you know exactly who the fuck he is.
I've got a really you keep talking. I'm just gonna do some research. I wonder what star sign Torian Prince is. Do you think he's a Taurus?
No, he's
22 March. So March.
That's my mum.
March makes you what?
Mum is a mum.
22 March puts you on the cusp, like right on the cusp of what? Maybe Aquarius, Aries. There we go.
Yeah, you got no
He's
idea.
an Aries.
You got no idea.
Hey, I'm trying my best.
Jackson Hayes, Torian, Cam Reddish, Christian Wood in the past week.
Cam Reddish, is he the one that's been really bad everywhere, like consistently?
Can you Google his agent? I believe it starts with a K and rhymes with clutch with a C.
Yeah.
And Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent in the playoffs? No, Gabe Vincent in the regular season. They re-signed AD, Austin Reeves, D'Lo, and Rui, and they lost Beasley, Schroeder, Lonnie Walker, and AD's willingness to play the 5, because AD, multiple times this offseason, has come out and said, hey, I really don't want to play the 5 anymore, which is just fucked up. Like, the only time he ever said, fuck it, I'll be a 5, they won a title. And since then, it's just been like, nah, can you trade for Mo Bamba? Jackson Hayes, bad at basketball. Cam Reddish, bad at basketball. Did you Google his agent?
No, it definitely is with a K.
Okay. Yeah. Christian Wood, it's sick. He's on a minimum. Gabriel Vincenzo, is he the team's 3rd or 4th best player? We got LeBron, AD, in whatever way you want to put them. Austin Reeves is their 3rd best player.
I think he's securely their 3rd best player.
But Austin Reeves hasn't made multiple finals runs and has been a good player.
Yeah, I mean, has anyone else on this team, like other than outside of Vincent?
Yeah. D'Angelo Russell was like, it's 2 for 34, and the second year is a player option, but it's just like no one wants to pay him. But if it was a minimum, then they wouldn't. But they had his bird right, so they just fucking did it.
Roster spot.
Yeah, roster spot.
Salary slot.
Rui Hachimura obviously started hitting shots when it mattered, right before he was a free agent.
But his deal was like bigger than it should have been.
Yeah, it was like 454. Rui's just a backup forward, I believe, but 48.5.
3 for 51. So you're paying Rui 17 a year and D'Lo 16 a year.
LA Lakers 48.5. You've gone over. I've gone under. Why are you going over?
Because I actually think this is all sensible.
Jackson Hayes.
Yeah, and what I'll say is the most interesting thing about this is something that you hit on, which is AD's willingness to play the 5. Because offensively, a Wood and AD front court that's nice.
What?
Wood and AD offensively, that is like so multifarious, and they can just both do a bit of everything. I was very critical of the fit with Wood in Dallas last season, where Luka just needs to play with the sort of bigs that they've brought in. He needs to play with either exclusively a spot-up shooter or exclusively a roll man.
And Wood's
neither. Wood's like somewhere in between. But considering Davis's ability to play inside and out, and then Wood's ability to sort of play make in the in-between spaces, I think that's going to be a really fun offensive fit, and there could be a lot to work with there. Also allows them to be fucking huge.
Yeah, but
which is where they've had their best success. But if in that look, AD defensively is the center, no doubt about it. So does he want to do that? Because if not, he then is playing the 4 next to Jackson Hayes or
Chris Wood.
Or Chris Wood playing the 5, like, which you don't love.
And like, I don't really want LeBron at the 3.
There's looks that they can throw out, but I think bringing
one of those looks was LeBron at the 5 last year, and it was sick.
Yeah, and that's fine. You can go to that. There's 82 games to get through it all, you know. But having like a bit of bedrock to churn through the regular season, I think with the players that they brought in are like actually like good players now.
Like, yeah, Gabe Vincent, awesome.
Torian Prince being my like 8th man 3-and-D wing, completely fine.
Jeff Green.
Rui being my 3rd forward, completely fine. D'Lo having his moments where he's not as terrible as what he looked towards the end of last season. Like, D'Lo's not going to be unplayable for, half of the season. He's going to give you 60 good-ish games. It's all valuable. Reeves, if he can continue to get better. Gabe Vincent, Wood coming off of a season in Dallas where he didn't really get much run and didn't really get... I just don't think that was ever a fit from the beginning for him to show what he's got. I just think it's all sensible. And the players that they've got on the roster now compared to the players they got on the roster opening day last year is night and day, so much better. And then you throw in the big one. Like, they sort of weren't healthy for the first 2/3 of last season.
Yeah, they started 1-10. And
yeah,
it was like, the Pelicans get their pick.
It was bad. LeBron was injured. They still had Westbrook on this team. Like,
yeah,
it's all different. If they can stay healthy, I think the team's a lock to go over. If you got 65 games from both LeBron and AD, I think this team is a lock to go over 48.5.
If LeBron and AD miss like 40 games, right?
Then you're screwed.
But if they're screwed because it's Gabe Vincent, Austin Reeves, Rui, 4-5.
The difference for me between this pick and the Clippers pick, where there's major injury concerns, is that I think that this is a deeper and more sensibly constructed team with better offensive and defensive talent than what the Clippers have. I think this team is more able to weather the loss of one or both stars than the Clippers are.
Next team, the Memphis Grizzlies, 45.5. What was their record last year?
Their record last year was 51 wins, which put them at the 2 seed behind.
So this is 5 wins worse, and they added Marcus Smart, Josh Christopher, and Derrick Rose. They re-signed Desmond Bane, and they lost Dylan Brooks and Tyus Jones. I think this might, if we do off-season grades, this maybe is an A, because I really like Josh Christopher as a second draft guy, where it's like, oh, okay, like, you know, his first 2 years weren't great. I guess he is just Jalen Green's best friend, and now it's like, oh, you're on a winning team who needs what you bring as you know, a guard /3 defender. Let's see if you can do it. And if nothing happens, nothing happens at all. But you lose Dylan Brooks to bring in more guys. Tyus Jones hurts, but you've got Marcus Smart, and Jericho is supposed to be the backup point guard, but like Tibbs wasn't playing him sometimes, but then he was still good. I don't get it. I didn't love this trade when I saw it happen. When I saw the Kristaps Porzingis / Marcus Smart trade, I was like, not a fan at all. Also, we have to factor in that Jar's going to miss the first 25 games because he
that's why there's 6 wins less, and for no other reason.
But we've both gone over. Why have you gone over?
I've crunched the numbers. I went into the analytics den and I crunched the numbers. Jar's suspended for 25 games. If this team can go 13-12, 500, through that suspension, to hit this number, they would need to go 33-24 the rest of the way. Right. And that's obviously going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no way this team is...
Taylor Jenkins, good coach.
There's no way... Like, 33-24 is like I think the absolute bare minimum of what this team would do over the final 3 quarters of the season. And this team probably can go 13-12. Like, I don't know what, we don't know what their schedule looks like for the first portion of the season without Jar. But, like, play a few cupcakes. Like, Marcus Smart gives you everything that Dylan Brooks did minus 2 inches of height.
Yeah. I guess, he does take the bad shots as well.
Yeah, literally everything. But he's like, oh, you lost your heart and soul player. Bam. Just put him right back in.
Yeah.
A dude who's, like, playing with a chip on his shoulder, for sure. Fits the, they've kind of moved away from the grit and grind era. In terms of skill set, but not in terms of mentality. Like, Marcus Smart is a Memphis mentality player.
I mean, like Marcus Smart, Steven Adams, and Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't care who's at your 3 and 2. Like, Desmond Bane. Yeah. That's pretty good on defense.
That's awesome. Taylor Jenkins, defensive player of the year is
2.
Yeah. 2 defensive player of the year in his starting line. That's pretty...
And Steven Adams, who was like, one of the better defensive centers in his prime.
I just think 33-24 down the final, like, almost 3 quarters of the season is like the absolute bare minimum, and I'm confident in this team's ability to straddle 500 until Jar gets back.
We've both hit the over. Would you say this is your best pick in the whole entire board? No, it's not. Okay. My best pick's coming. Oh, all right. Well, let's do one more before we head to lunch. Minnesota Timberwolves, 44.5. They added Troy Brown Jr. They re-signed Naz Reid. Now they're paying centers like $500 million. $500 million. They lost Jalen Noel, who's still a free agent, and they lost Torian, first name only. What was their record last year? They were 42-40 last year. And so this would be three wins bigger. With Cat coming back, Anthony Edwards, fever bump / all the goodwill in the world, Rudy Gobert, hopefully not being dog shit, and Troy Brown Jr. I've gone under. What have you done? I've also gone under, and I went over initially before pivoting back. And I think I've got 2 sentences to kind of summarise why I've gone under. Summarise my thinking. Can it be worse than last year? Maybe it could. And they'll only go under if things go seriously wrong. But then again,
things could go seriously wrong.
Things could go right and they could win 42 games again. They just might not be a good basketball team.
They just might not be able to be a good basketball team with all of the knots that they've pretzeled themselves into with their roster construction.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the Gobert Towns thing was a complete disaster before Towns got injured. Then he came back and it was a complete disaster and the chemistry was shot to pieces. What's the fix there other than just saying that they're going to be better playing together, which doesn't necessarily pass the smell test?
Yeah, because it's like, well, what's happened? Like they struggled to play together, then they had massive injuries, and then they didn't have enough time to get it back together. But they're just going to start the season, and it's like, oh, they're entering it awkward. There was also all like the really negative Rudy Gobert press coming out when D'Angelo got traded.
Rudy Gobert and Carl Anderson gone to a full punch on the sidelines.
Yeah. Who's Carl Anderson? He's still
there.
Carl Anderson's still a good player. They got into a chon. Anthony Edwards had like, I think he was joking, but he's like, oh, I'd love to dunk on Rudy in FIBA, but it's like, I know with the history of how much everyone hates him. Like,
Rudy was shit in FIBA, I know that as well.
It's just under. I think everything could go well, and they would get 44 wins, and they'll be maybe the 6th seed. I just don't see... Like, last year I said this team might sniff 60, because I was still high on Rudy Gobert just being like DPOY, and he clearly isn't that. And it just unfortunately happened after he was traded for
Well, he's just also like...
picks.
His individual... Like, where he's at individually, notwithstanding, like, he's not able to be DPOY level, even if he could be, because Towns is just not a capable defender, and... to be honest, neither are half of the fucking players that are playing around him last season. And the system in Utah was designed, it was set up, there was selected personnel. Whereas this is just like, let's slap them all together and let's put like Towns, the most unwieldy fit we could have for you defensively, playing on fours on the perimeter. I don't know, just no one in this team is set up for success. Maybe except Edwards, who seems like maybe he could transcend the jank, but like even if Edwards transcends the jank, is this team going to be...
It's still jank.
Are they going to be 45 wins? Like, I just don't know. Like, I put more faith into the Clippers going 45 wins than I do into this team, because at least the Clippers have proof of concept if they can stay healthy.
A lineup of Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyle Anderson, and Rudy Gobert, with backups of Chris Paul, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. Do you like that roster? And Naz Reid at the 5?
I'm just going to give you some friendly advice. Stop what you're doing. Stop toying with yourself to think that that's going to happen.
But that's
because there's a name. Because there's a name there that you haven't mentioned that's obviously going out the other way, and it's not going to happen.
Which is what?
Which is Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, Karl Anthony Towns the other way.
And it's not going to happen, and you should stop.
You reckon? I don't even want him, but I just for the Wolves, man. I'm doing this for the Wolves fans.
Oh, okay, he's doing it for the Wolves. Yeah, I'm taking the multiple-time All-Star for the Wolves. Yeah,
okay. But it changes his voice with every interview. It's just ugh. Yeah,
it just kind of sucks.
But Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a really good basketball player.
He's a basketball player, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break halfway through and come back after.
Alright, and welcome back to the second half of the Over Unders podcast, presented by Gelateria Bico, the official gelato of the Deep Tube Podcast Network. Gelateria Bico, homemade gelato in the heart of Brunswick.
Fuck yeah.
Next up, we've got the New Orleans Pelicans, who were set at 43.5 after a 42-win season last year.
They added whoever they drafted 14th and Cody Zeller. I don't know if they re-signed anyone. And they lost Jackson and Billy Willie.
Is that Bo Cruz?
Yeah. So 43 wins isn't very many, but this is just a perennial 39-win team. Like, CJ's going to be another year older. Brandon Ingram, awesome. He had a fake injury in FIBA because he didn't want to accept his role. That's my theory anyway. Is Zion going to play 50-plus games? Maybe they'll go over then. If they don't, they're just a 39-win team.
I've gone over because I just feel like they can't, like, this can't keep continuing. They have to get one season where they all get to play together.
Apparently, because that's what the fucking media's been telling us, mate.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's actually no rule that says that, but you just think in the balance of probabilities, like, if Zion can't play 50 games, like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
They've got, like, a nice collection of guys around them as well. Like Trey Murphy is going to be injured to start the season, which is something to watch.
It was a partial meniscus tear.
Yeah, partial meniscus tear, and famously meniscus. No worries, everyone comes back from that just fine. But you know, between Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall, Herb.
Don't say Najee second.
You know what I mean. They kind of got some dudes, like Dyson Daniels might take a step forward. Like, they got some players who it's like, oh, could you be the 7th guy on a good team? Like, you probably could.
Yeah, but they need the 3rd through 5th guy.
I mean, CJ healthy and in a healthy basketball ecosystem where he doesn't have to do everything. Not saying that he was like doing everything, but like where there's not as much like offensive responsibility put on his shoulders, and he can kind of be the 3rd scorer rather than the 1st or 2nd scorer behind a Zion and an Ingram. Like that, to me, it sounds good. Like the best case scenario for this team, I think, is quite good. Even the good case, you know, like a mid to positive scenario for this team, I think, is over. The only way I think this team's not going over is like if Zion is injured, which is super possible, but sometimes you got to make a pick. For instance, like, I think this team's going to be better than the Timberwolves. I think this team is going to be better than the Clippers. Like, I think they're going to be in that, like, 6-7
I think
range.
the Clippers will be better. Yeah, 6-7. Right, you've gone over. I've gone under. Oklahoma City Thunder. Number is set at 44.5. What they have last year?
They had 40 wins, which is kind of crazy. kind of awesome for them.
Finished strong.
Good for them.
They added... Who the fuck's Davis?
Mate, you fucking wrote it.
Who the fuck?
They added Victor Oladipo and Cason Wallace, who they drafted 10th after trading with the Dallas Mavericks. Cason Wallace, who
Who the fuck's Davis?
Okay, so they added Oladipo again.
Davis Bertans. Davis. They added. Well, they took Davis Bertans as a salary dump to move up from 12 to 10 to get Cason Wallace, who's like supposed to be a Marcus Smart type. Didn't re-sign. Oh no, did they re-sign Shea this offseason? And then they lost Dario Saric. I've gone over 45 wins, quite a lot, but they're also adding Chet Holmgren. And they've just got a bunch of young dudes who, like, if any of them hit, it's sort of like the Denver Nuggets, but on steroids, where it's like, if any of the Denver Nuggets young guys hit, then it's like, oh, they've got a good role player. But if any of the Oklahoma City young dudes hit, it's like, oh, you might actually have, like, a very good player. Like, Josh Giddey, what more can he be? Alexei Pokusevski, I think he's going to miss 6 weeks.
Don't say Pokusevski second.
What do you mean? I should say him first.
No, I'm saying you should say him way.
You're getting me back.
Getting you back, yeah.
Right.
But you haven't mentioned Jalen Williams, either of them. But
yeah, I also didn't mention Jalen
Williams.
Yeah, guard Jalen Williams, who could, well, guard/forward, who could be an all-star this season.
If guard Jalen Williams is like the 36th best player in the NBA this year, awesome. You are gonna be in the playoffs.
What's Osman Jeng give you? Like, does
he need to give you anything? 8 minutes.
It's they can be a very good basketball team. They've got like I said, if the Denver Nuggets young guys hit, they've got role players. If the OKC could get a star. Also, I'm going to say this when we do our big season predictions podcast, but like, you know, I'm going to put Shea down for MVP. Like, Shea's my MVP this year. FIBA bump. Also, just bump.
First team All NBA bump.
Yeah.
5th in MVP voting.
They're going to be trying for 100% of the season. They've got players at all 5 positions that they're content to be their player for the future if anything happens. Like, it's no longer like, oh, well, they don't have a big. It's like, oh, well, they have multiple bigs, and one of them's going to be on their next championship contender. I've gone over, you've gone under. Are you under because 45 is a lot of wins?
I don't know why I'm under. I just am.
Do you reckon these guys like, would you be confident saying these guys are going to be better than the Clippers, the Pels, and because that's who they're fighting with, the Clippers, the Pels, and the.
I would not be shocked at all
Wolves.
if they're better than the Clippers.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if they're better than the Wolves. I think they will be better than the Wolves. The Pels, I think they it's just difficult to. Obviously, this is an exercise in absolutism and like being definitive, but it's difficult to talk about the Pels without like, without Zion kind of looming over it all.
Yeah,
but if you got 50 games of Zion, I think the Pels are going to be better than the Thunder. I think what's potentially likely is that, Chet is good. Giddey and Jalen Williams guard take steps forward.
Jalen Williams big step down.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
And Shea continues to play out. You can't play better than Shea last season. Like on an individual level, that's as good as it gets. And that I think those things could all happen, and they could still win about the same amount of games this year.
Yeah.
I think last year was unique because everyone in the West was kind of like clumped together within like 6 games of each other. You had kind of like 2 50-win teams, and then everybody else was like there, all clumped in the mid-40s. And I don't think that's going to happen again this season. This team could be looking at 42, 43, 44, which I think would still be like a huge. If you've got everyone together and you're pushing for the playoffs or even making the playoffs,
it's sort of like Memphis a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you don't need to be a 4 seed right now. You don't need to be winning 48 games right now. You just need to show that you've got proof of concept when everyone's together. This works.
Look, it's you're
that being said, I feel terrible about this. I feel terrible about this.
We've got the cluster, and you're picking against the young up-and-coming team.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next team, Phoenix Suns. Their number set at 51.5. What did they have last year?
Yeah, they were one of the aforementioned clumped teams. 45 wins last season.
They added the BBs, that is Bradley Beal, Bol. They added Katie Bates-Diop, Drew Banks, Eric Gordon, and Yuta Watanabe. They re-signed Lee, and Okogie. That's just one dude, Lee Okogie. And they lost Darius Baisley, Jock Landale, Torrey Craig, Campaign, CP3, T. Ross, who's unsigned anywhere, Landry Schmidt, and TJ Warren. Is TJ Warren signed anywhere? I don't think he is. 51.5. They obviously have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on the team, and Bradley Beal. I think I think it's quite common knowledge that you did the best out of what's TJ Warren doing.
He's just chilling.
Good on him. I think it's well known that you did the best out of all the minimum guys. I think a lot of the guys you got are good for the playoffs, maybe not the regular season, but like at least when KD misses his 20 games, Yuta Watanabe is going to be there.
At least when KD misses 20 games, Yuta Watanabe.
Well, you've got Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, and then you've just got a 3-and-D.
Oh, it's okay. Like we can deal with KD. Yuta, you're up.
No, but you know what I mean. Like,
I know what you mean.
You're just a 3-and-D that comes in with any of these guys. I'm sort of not high on Bol. I was a bit like, he's doing this stuff in Orlando. And it's like, he just, maybe it was a bad Denver situation, which it hasn't been a bad Denver situation for fucking anyone. Maybe Bol's right.
Opposite.
And then now they, Orlando had the chance to keep Bol, and they actively said, no, thank you. And then you got a minimum from you guys, which is a bit like, why has he done that? This is now the second situation. There were also questions coming out of college. Anyway, we'll fucking see. I hope you trade for a point guard, and it's probably going to be TJ McConnell, or you're going to sign Reggie Jackson when he gets waived, or like a Reggie Jackson type. You sort of need a point guard because I don't think the Brad Beal experiment's going to work. But like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant you're going to win 50 games.
Yeah, we will, and I've gone over. We have been linked with McConnell before, substantially linked. And if that was a situation where seconds could get it done, seconds and contract could get it done, then McConnell would be a great choice. I think the problem though, you've kind of hinted at it, Booker and Beal, both of them can handle the ball. Neither of them are point guards though, and it turns out it's not just a matter of having, and this is something that the Bucks have found with their 3 stars who can all handle the ball.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of having 3 all-star level guys who can all handle the ball and play make. You need one guy who can do that at a really high level. None of the Bucks players can do that at a really high level, and neither Booker nor Beal nor Durant are your floor general organizer. And in fact, when Booker down the stretch of games in the postseason has had to do that, he hasn't been good at it. So saying, Brad Beal is going to handle the point, I mean, that doesn't fill me with any sort of confidence. Booker's going to be able to play Booker's role, awesome, but that doesn't fill me with confidence at all. So I think we do need a point guard, and I am really trepidatious about what that fit is going to be like offensively. Like, is there a bit of potential for it to just be like what I mentioned before with the Hawks with Murray and Young? Like, are you both just going to be a bit worse?
Yeah.
That's still hard to defend, but like, it's not this like yin and yang puzzle piece. Like, oh, they're going to accentuate each other's strengths. It's like, maybe that doesn't happen.
Well, what will be alright is a Bradley Beal for DeJounte Murray trade.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy. As crazy as the NBA has been over the off season, that is crazy. I mean, I gotta process that. I've gone over. This is my best bet as well.
Really?
Yeah, because why not?
You've got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker.
I'm coming off a win in this exercise last season. I'm playing with house money here.
House money down 3-1.
2-1. Yeah, I'm coming for you. Consider me the Raptors that year.
I've also gone over. Has Kevin Durant, like, obviously last year traded halfway through, but has he been on a less than 50 win team in the past couple of years? What were his Brooklyn teams doing?
I feel like some of the Brooklyn teams wouldn't have been 50. They would have been
49.
40s. No, I mean 45. I don't know.
Did they play? They played the Bucks in the second round that year, where KD had the deep two with his toe on the line.
Yeah,
that was a 49 win. If only there's a way to figure it out. Next team, Portland Trail Blazers. They're off the board for this one place that we went to. They added Scoot and Chris Murray. They re-signed Jeremy Grant and Matisse Thybulle. And they lost Drew Eubanks, Cam Reddish, and Justice Winslow, who's unsigned. So the one thing we probably should have mentioned in the Phoenix Suns stuff is that there's been more DeAndre Ayton trade rumours, which is just going to happen forever. But this was more talking about a Damian Lillard trade for the Blazers and finding a way to get Yusuf Nurkic onto the Phoenix Suns and DeAndre Ayton as extra teams in top of there to get DeAndre Ayton on.
Add that sentence to the list of sentences that fill me with something less than optimism.
I don't know why, because who's your general manager? James Jones. He's always just wanted a European big. Like, he was really big on Sabonis for those couple of years, like somehow getting Sabonis on your team. And now it's Yusuf Nurkic. And he's like, remember he said he really wants to play through the high post and do some stuff with Ayton passing. That's just not who you are. You've got Devin Booker on your team, and now you
don't need to be.
You don't need to do that. It's like, maybe if you're building from scratch, it's like we need
21, 22 Ayton.
Yeah. That's
who we need.
And who did that? Chris Paul. Paul famously not there anymore.
Yeah.
What do you want to do about this off the board Portland Trailblazers number?
I reckon maybe we can have a Portland Trailblazers chat, but I reckon we exclude it and go 29.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
And just say that neither of us are going to be able to finish 500. You're either going to be over or under. But where are you at generally with the Trailblazers this season? I mean, it all kind of hinges on whether Lillard gets dealt before the season or whether he reports to training camp.
Yeah, so there's been John Hollinger said that a lot of these like new contracts and a lot of the talks start again after Labor Day in America, which was like a week ago. And after that happened, it was like, the PJ Washington extension got done. Chris Wood just signed somewhere. Like, all these guys come back from the holidays, and then that's why we've seen like Danny Green sign, Kelly Oubre signed. All this stuff's getting done after people come back from holidays. So that's why we're seeing the trade talks ramp up. Also, we're less than a month away from the season, or maybe just a month. So that's why we're saying...
But probably a month, bang on. It'll be less than a month when you listen to this.
So it's just... it's like the stuff's getting done. That's why we're seeing more Damian Lillard trade rumors come out. Like, before it was like, well, they don't want Tyler Hero and blah, 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 blah. And now this morning it was like 4 teams are interested in Tyler Hero. It's like, I think it was maybe Boston, the Mavs, Charlotte Hornets and stuff. So it's like, okay, there's now teams are back, teams are talking. Now there's 4 teams who want Tyler Hero who might get involved in this trade. And that's why DeAndre Ayton trade rumors were floating again. What was your question?
How do you feel about the Blazers?
I feel like they should get stuff done. There's been this like big push from Miami fans on Twitter that are like, Toxic Joe's just not letting him go. And then like there was this one
Toxic Joe Cronin.
Yeah, there was this one fan that's just like, hey, like Tyler Hero just tweeted him working out. It's just like wherever I go, I'm just gonna I'm gonna put in my best and stuff. And then there's this one dude, his name was like Heat Fan 278, and he's just like, hey Tyler, like fucking mad respect, like, you know, if you go somewhere, we're going to be rooting for you forever, but if you come back, like, don't hold any grudges, like, you just got to let that fuel you. And then someone retweeted and was like, you have a Damian Lillard Miami Heat Photoshop jersey as your profile picture, and all these fans are retweeting it, Tyler Hero, saying, if you have to come back, let it fuel you, man. Like, I think it's just going to happen because the Heat, can I add, the Heat have done nothing. The Heat's the whole ethos has been like, let's just fucking wait till we get Dame. Gabe Vincent's gone. Max Strus is gone. They've let Omer Yurtseven go to the Utah Jazz. Everything is on this. They're fully all in, and they're losing like they're losing power as the offseason progresses. Like, now you can't just get Kelly Oubre for a minute. You can't just pick up Danny Green. So I think it just has to get done. So where I'm at in the Dame stitch is that he's just going to play for the Heat by opening night. Where are you at?
I'm not sure because it feels that way, but there's been a real sort of what we've seen in Philly and elsewhere over the last 2 or 3 seasons. GM's just saying, actually, no. If I've got one opportunity to maximize my job and this team for the next 5-10 years, I'm going to make sure that this is done on our terms. And obviously Ben Simmons was not the favourite son of a city like Dame is in Portland. And neither is James Harden. And nor is Joe Cronin and Daryl Morey. So who knows what his perspective on all of this will be. But I think there's more likelihood than there was a few years ago that this lingers, which will mean what that means for the Trailblazers. I don't know, because if it's lingering into the season, like, is Dame ever going to show up? Who knows?
Yeah.
If it does get resolved, obviously this is going to be a bad team with a highly drafted rookie point guard. You got to imagine Jeremy Grant will be gone by the trade deadline. If anyone wants to take on the 5 years and $150 million contract that he signed,
the Dallas Mavericks probably will.
The Dallas Mavericks actually make a lot of sense for that. I mean, it would be great if he didn't cost so much, but that's the sort of player that Dallas is missing. I don't know. It's just a wait and see, I guess, and it'll be fun if Dame does go to see, like, what does his team look like with Scoot. And I'm less sold on Shaden Sharp than everyone else seems to be, simply because of the small sample size. Yeah. But that'll be cool to be fun. Like, there'll be no pressure on them to be good at any point in the next 4 years, unless it turns out Scoot is as transcendent as everyone's hoping. It'll be interesting. Should we move on to the Kings?
Yeah. What was their number?
They're set at 44.5 after being the bloody 3 seed. Can you believe that? Last season with 48 wins.
I'll start off with what they lost. So you've got how many wins do they have? A 3 seed.
48.
They lost Terrence Davis and Rashawn Holmes, and they added Chris Duarte, JaVale McGee, and Sasha, the Euro shooter. I didn't write his surname down.
You didn't write his surname down?
Sasha Vujacic? Sasha
Vujacic was from the Lakers in many years ago. Sasha Vezenkov.
Right. Apparently he's just like a Ryan.
Sasha Vujacic was like a 10th man on the Powell Kobe Lakers.
Right.
Kobe, rest in peace. He's watching. Oh my god, the time is now 2:24.
Fuck, Kobe.
He's watching.
It's 2:44.
Nah, it's for the bit.
Just
go with it, you idiot. It's 8:24. He's watching.
It's 24:08. Am I doing it right? Added Chris Duarte, Sasha, and JaVale McGee. And they re-signed Harry Barnes, Alex Len, Sabonis. They re-signed him early. He could have taken this into next off-season, got him more money, but just get your checks now, and re-signed Trey Lyles. This team, I don't see any reason, especially in the regular season, why this can't be a 50-win team. Why can't these guys be a top 4 seed again?
Because there's a whole bunch of other really good teams as well.
Yeah, but
that's the main reason.
We just spent a lot of time on the West, right, talking about all the teams that are clustered in that, let's call it the Pelicans range, right? They're all clustered there. OKC, well, both LA teams, maybe even Golden State. Sacramento is just much more consistent on offense. And I think they lost Terrence Davis. I really like picking up Chris Duarte, I think he must be 39 now, but he's still got a couple more good years in him. I think this is just like they've just gotten slightly better. And I think last year was real. It's not like, they caught flashing up hand for 82 games. I think they were legitimately good. Sabonis had that hand injury, which hampered him a little bit. De'Aaron Fox is only going to get better and maybe like gun for that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander first team All-NBA slot. Like, why can't this be a 50-win team again?
Yeah.
For the first time.
I don't know that I see 50 wins for them, but I definitely see 45. I've gone over as well. I don't feel particularly good one way or the other about this, but I think there's no reason to think this team would be substantially worse than they were last season, which this represents 3 games worse. If they would go under than this, it'd be 4 games worse.
Yeah.
I don't really see that happening. Like, even if, there's a less clustered West and some of the teams that disappointed last season, like the Phoenix Suns, are ticking up there again into the 50s. I still don't think this team is going to be substantially worse. That's all I really have to say about it, though.
Yeah, like there is a big cluster. You've gone with the Lakers and the Wolves, and I've gone with the Clippers.
No, I haven't gone with the Wolves.
Yeah, the Lakers and no one else. Though.
The Lakers,
Pels.
the Lakers and the Pels, yeah.
And I've gone OKC and Kings, and look, that Clippers thing, it just fucking happened. Look, that's why we do this. Some of us are going to be right, some of us are going to be wrong.
And then we'll count it all up at the end.
Yeah, and then we'll keep a tally of like our total score across the entire duration of the pod. Next team, San Antonio Spurs, numbers set at 29.5. What did they have last year?
They had 22 wins last season.
Fuck, that's not a lot. They added Victor Wembanyama, Reggie Bullock, Serge Ibaka-Rice, and Cedi Osman, which Cedi Osman might be a good pickup for a team that might be sniffing 30. Re-signed nobody.
Might be sniffing 30. What are you sniffing?
They lost KBD and Romeo Langford. Alright, now we've both clicked under, right? And it's completely right. Like, it's a bad team that just wants to stay bad so they can keep being bad and get more of the good players in the draft. But what if Wembanyama's just like Paolo Banchero good? Like, actually, no, they don't really have a point guard. Yeah, I've gone under. They've got Trey.
If
Trey
Wemby's
Jones.
Paolo Banchero good, then awesome, they're going under. The team's not hitting 30. And there's good players around, around your Vassell's, your Keldon Johnsons. Like, there are good young guys who could, in theory, take a step. But there's no urgency, and San Antonio has all of Atlanta's draft capital, and I feel like they've got heaps of other stuff coming in. Like, there's no rush for them to try at all this year, and we'll see how Wembanyama physically adjusts to the NBA. Like, it might not be something where he comes in and he's like Zion, fucking setting it all on fire, because he's not 270 pounds and he can just go through everyone.
Yeah,
270.
We saw in Summer League he struggled against just like G League dudes who were
just
bigger
big
than
G.
him.
Who knows? It might be something that takes time, and if it does take time, that no one is going to be worried. There's completely they're the opposite of the Rockets this year. They both had 22 wins last season, but the Spurs are still completely playing with house money, seeing what they've got. So I think they're, were I not a starry-eyed optimist for my own team, this would be my best bet, I think.
Reggie Bullock and Cedi Osman, like I talked about floor raisers for the Rockets, but I think there's not enough floor raisers here. and I really don't like Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, neither. After my experience playing fantasy basketball with him last season,
Jeremy Sohan, cool. He's a great defensive player.
Yeah, like Malachi Branham. Like, there's dudes here. Yeah. Like, whether they're good, whether they take a step this season, it's almost like irrelevant. Like, this team will be down the stretch. This team will be within the confines of the new NBA rest rules. We'll be resting players as much as they can. Like, this team doesn't need to or want to win right away. So I think, I think hard under.
The Utah Jazz, their number is at 35.5.
And last season they had 37 wins.
They added John Collins, Johns Colin, Taylor Hendricks at number 9. Romeo Langford. I got to start writing first names because I'm trying to do that first name bit. It's got to be Romeo Langford. Omer Yurtseven.
Wait, you're telling me that Torian was a bit?
They re-signed Jordan Clarkson, who I think has picked up his player option, and they lost Rudy Gay because that's apparently all it took to get Johns Colin. 35.5. Yeah, they've still got Larry Markkinen. It's no longer a surprise to anyone. Colin Sexton. like who they draft like 14, like Keontae George or something. Like he's like maybe going to be the next Donovan Mitchell. 36 wins is a lot for this team.
The optimist case is Walker Kessler is a full-time starter and is like a top 5 defensive player.
Yeah.
Top 5 defensive center type player.
Yeah.
Who continues to fill the Rudy Gobert role on offense. Larry Markkinen sustains his all-star level play from last season. And not to say that I don't think that he can or will do that, but important to note that that was a huge aberration from the rest of Larry Markkinen's career. And then John Collins comes in and gives you maybe a little bit of positional flexibility to play super big like they did last time alongside Markkinen, and then otherwise just gives you back up 4 or 5 minutes for 25 minutes a game. And then you get passable guard play from Sexton and Clarkson.
Chris Dunn, Ochai Agbaji.
That's the optimist case, and I think that team probably maxes out at like 38 wins, like in the optimistic case, and I don't necessarily think that all of those things are going to happen. So I've gone under, and I feel reasonably confident about this.
They tore all this down to stop being a middling team that can't succeed in the playoffs, and I think they might be like they're not in the best situation. Like they've got heaps of picks from the Wolves, and they've got heaps of picks from the Cavs. But I don't, like, you were high last off-season on the Danny Ainge retool, like, you know, go get Kevin Garnett to go with your Paul Pierce, but, like, I just don't fucking... Yeah, they might have, like, a good defensive 5 for the next 10 years. Larry Markkinen is going to be your, say, a third option or second option on a title team. I'm not very high on anything else they can do. It's a bit shit.
It is.
And they might win 37 games.
They might. But yeah, I mean, in terms of looking forward, they are a middling team. I think even if this team could win 43 or 44 and break into the playoff mix, like this team's not winning a series.
Yeah.
So where are you?
Yeah.
You just traded for John Collins with, you know, for peanuts in terms of the asset play. You gave him nothing, but you're still on the hook for his contract.
Yeah. And like when Danny Ainge made the playoffs, when you're like, what are they doing pushing for the playoffs? It's like, oh, Marcus Smart gets experience, Jaylen Brown gets experience, but like, what are you doing now? Keontae George and Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah, my guy Colin Sexton, he's probably not the next great ball handler for the Utah Jazz postseason experience. Yeah. So I think under is where this team needs to be. This team will be the worst non-tanking, non-Rockets team.
They're in a pretty bad sitch, the Utah Jazz.
The thing is, though, they can. I think they can pivot out. Like if you wanted to trade Markkinen, like you could trade Markkinen.
Yeah, and they got the picks coming.
Like keep Walker Kessler. Trade off like a Clarkson for a first round pick. Trade Markkinen. You could get a lot for Markkinen if you traded in this season.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Do you roll with the Johns Collins Walker Kessler combo the rest of the season?
Why the fuck? It's great value, but why they do the John Collins? But I think after doing this exercise, there aren't a lot of teams with incentives to lose. Like the Spurs were one team that were like they're going to lose games, but like. The Pistons want to win. The Rockets want to win. Who else was bad? The Magic I think they might just accidentally win.
Yeah.
OKC are going to win. Like, Utah could be the second team trying to lose. Oh, the Charlotte Hornets are there. Like, there's not many, like...
Yeah, the spot would be there for Utah to pivot into.
Portland, if they can trade. What's the top 3 draft picks next year?
In terms of the team,
Charlotte probably gets second because they just like doing that.
Charlotte, San Antonio, Portland.
Yeah.
I mean, that's eerily similar to the top picks from this year anyway.
It is. It is eerily similar.
Is it the exact same?
It would be the Bulls, but they don't...
It can't... The Bulls have too much going on. Like, the Wizards, throw the Wizards in there.
Sorry, yeah.
Throw the Wizards in there, maybe take the Hornets out. Like, that's probably...
The Raptors could...
The Raptors, again, though, like the Jazz would need to pivot hard. They need to shed players to even get into that mix. But I guess when everyone is trying to win, you get more time. You can get further into the season before you have to decide. And you're making a more informed decision about how realistic it is that you can do a proper tank with the time left to get a top 3 pick.
I've got an article with about 2,000 words in it, like ready to shape. It's all about how would Scotty Barnes fit with Jonathan Kuminga.
You are You're crazy. You're crazy.
You just don't think that trade package is worth much.
I just don't want to say you get hurt, and I also think it's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. That's why we're laughing. All right.
Why we're laughing.
How do we wrap these things up? Do we have any takeaways for like over unders or?
Not for over-unders, but I think maybe for the league. Like, I think it's the second straight season where everyone is going to be trying to win, and where in both conferences there may be like 12 or 13 teams that are going to try and be finishing in the playoff spots. And I don't know whether that's circumstantial, but it's a pretty big win for capital T, capital L, the league, in terms of Adam Silver wanting to restore this like competitive drive. Like, now you've pretty much got everyone trying to win.
Yeah.
Which is, it's good for basketball.
Like, no one's saying ruin your day for Moutier, and like no one's tanking for Ed Maple Jordan, Andrew Wiggins anymore. Like, it is good for basketball. It's actually a great time to be a basketball fan, because talking about the Warriors, I'm like, I want to see what Chris Paul looks like coming off the bench, because it's like, okay, he's going to do his snake dribble and then kick it out to Moody, or he's got a lob to Kuminga. I really can't wait to see that. It is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think he can share the court with Draymond, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, yeah, he and Draymond will have some mind meld capabilities, but it is important to be able to shoot 3-point shots in 2023.
For what it's worth, they were working out together last week and they were putting up threes. Also, it came out that the Warriors, like all the vets, gave the all clear to Dwight Howard to get signed. And then the front office were like, we just want to sit down and like talk about his willingness to fill a role. Like, if he wants to just play every fourth game, like, because because there are other guys on the team. And then it came out this morning that they're not going to sign Dwight Howard. And it's like, so Dwight Howard fumbled it. He went into that meeting and said, no, I have to be the starting centre.
It's hard to go from putting up 82 points in Taiwan or wherever he's playing to playing every fourth game for the Warriors. Yeah. Also, like, you just don't need Dwight Howard. Like, DeAndre Jordan is a better centre at this point in Dwight Howard's life.
I'm not going to have that conversation.
But you know what I mean. Like, you can go and find
a shit centre if you want one.
If you want one. I think Mo Bamba's available. So
yeah. All right, well, Dante, I will speak to you next time we do talk.
Sounds good.